Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out a video titled 7 Habits Americans Find Rude. And this is regarding to the French. And I've, in a sense, understand that the French are very strict people. So maybe there's a few things that we would find rude. But however, my goal is to actually figure out what are the 7 things that Americans would find rude with the French. Because, Americans do rude things themselves, so let's see how this one plays out. But either ways, man, thank you for watching. The original link will be in the description as usual. Go check it out. Uli in France. No, it's not ooh. I don't even know why my dyslexia triggered like that. There's literally no L right there. It's O-U-I. So I'd imagine it's French. In France. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Please, French people, don't hate on me. But yeah, let's get on to this video, man.
Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome back to We in France. I'm Diane. And
wait, hold on. So the O-U-I is we? I was like, what the hell? That's we? There's no way that's we. Wow. I butchered that. I am so sorry.
You know, French culture is known for its elegance, its delicious food, its rich history, but some of the customs and habits that are commonplace in France, they might come across as rude or even off-putting to Americans. Now, these cultural differences, they can cause misunderstandings, lead to conflicts between the two groups, and I want to get into it. So let's talk about French habits, very normal ones, that might be considered rude.
Quick question, isn't that poster behind her on the left or right, whichever way how you guys are going to see this video, isn't that Germany, West Germany, with the lights? I could be sure I've seen that picture before where it's like West Germany and East Germany and they're comparing, the history, why the lights look different. I don't know, but I'd imagine that is what that is. I think so.
In the United States. All right, so I recently did a video that you all seem to enjoy about a bunch of American habits that would be considered rude by the French. So in the name of balance and all, I'm back today with the reverse video. What French habits might be considered rude in the United States. So we're going to get right into it with number 1, casually debating at dinner. Now, what French people might consider friendly debate or lively dinner conversation might come across majorly rude to people in the United States. French people, they're happy to bring up more heated dinner topics like politics and just debate their points with the people around the table. And friends, they argue with each other, maybe even throw a few colorful jabs. They raise their voices and that sort of thing. It can get really lively.
I mean, that can happen in the United States, but we popping off. You know what I mean? They gonna get physical or somebody gonna walk right out, dude. Yeah, this is definitely something that you don't really want to do. Like in the United States, I don't think, I'm not disrespecting Americans. I think there are other people possibly like this in the entire world. However, with the United States, people are stuck on their point. You know what I mean? And consideration or listening ear to somebody else's topic might just turn out to be, something really violent at the end of the day, and hostility, like never speaking to each other for a very, very long time. Like, it's real life. So, certain things like politics, I'd leave that in the back. If you're an American or you move to America, you'd probably realize that saying that you're not voting or I can't decide between the two or something is much better than actually deciding between the two, because like it's always going to lead to some unnecessary
But the difference is then by dessert, everyone's moved on. The debate stays at the table and it's all in good fun. It's a bit of a national sport for the French and definitely part of the French way. Now, remember, debating is not fighting to the French, and it's certainly not personal. French people really, they don't get upset or have any hard feelings because it's normal to discuss things in this manner for the French. And, you get a little fired up in the moment, but then it's over and done with, and everyone's laughing again. There's no grudges. Now, in the US, I'd recommend treading with caution if you try this, and be ready for some hurt feelings and people who definitely take this lively French debate style personally. Many dinner conversations that I've had in France, they would never fly in the US or be considered polite ways to interact. Americans might take serious offense. Okay, number 2, keeping a social distance from people that we don't personally know very well. And this is something I discussed quite a bit on my channel, how the French separate social interactions into personal and public spheres, keeping their distance socially with people they don't know. And that means that the French are respecting the other person's personal sphere. It boils down to the fact that strangers, they won't be overly friendly or personable with people they don't know as a way to not intrude. Now, in professional contexts, people like cashiers, pharmacists, employees you run into, they're not going to make small talk at the cash register or ask a perfect stranger, hey, I love your shoes, where'd you buy them? Or to say, hey, what's up? How's it going? What are you doing later today? As a way to make conversation. That just really doesn't happen in France between people who don't know each other. And on the receiving end, I'm speaking from personal experience, this can feel cold. This can feel really unfriendly to Americans, as if the French person is not interested in us at all. We just seem to have more of a casual and...
Yeah, I do understand this perspective, but I think what majority of Americans have to understand is that, people socialize in different ways, and you're at a cashier or a checkout line or whatever you prefer to call it. You're there to check out and get your items and get the heck up out of the shop, right? It's not a, friendly situation where it's like, ugh, you know what I mean? But I'm not going to lie to you. I'm the type of person to be like, yo, bro, where you get that at? Or something of the sort like that. And if somebody asks me that question, I'm going to be like, yeah, I got it from whatever. It's something that I have no issue with. But I'm also balanced enough to understand that not everybody's going to do that, right? So at the end of the day, you're there for that particular thing. And that's what is most important in my humble opinion. You're there to check out an item and you did just that. You shouldn't feel bad about it.
Friendly style of communication in the US, I personally found this style of communication a bit rude and standoffish, definitely cold, until I was able to wrap my head around the nuances of how the French interact socially. They're polite but reserved, and that's done out of respect for you. Number 3, directness. Now, another habit that can be seen as rude by Americans is that the French tend to speak their mind bluntly, a bit more directly and without filter.
I want to show you in the next 60 seconds how people just like you are earning 5 to 10K a month with our automated systems.
No, boy! Get him out of here.
In France, directness is valued, and it's seen as a sign of honesty and also authenticity. But Americans can interpret this as rudeness, as insensitivity, and we tend to value others' feelings and diplomacy in communication. And in general, I'd say the French are less afraid to share their criticism in all contexts, and this can feel rude and hurtful if you aren't used to being on the receiving end of it. I really even heard French people say things, well, I'm just being honest, it's the truth. And yes, of course, it might be the truth, but Americans might find that to be unkind and rude, and at the very least, it would lack tact, and that's definitely not something you want to be doing. Read the room. All right, number 4, not tipping.
Read the room is a crazy statement, But yeah, I do understand though, so it's not a big deal.
At restaurants. Now, if you're not aware, in the United States, it's customary to tip 20% at restaurants. But not in France. In France, French people do sometimes tip, but it's not something everyone does always across the board, and it's never 20% at a restaurant. And that's partly because French waiters earn a salary. They don't depend on tips to live. And in general, maybe it's a good thing, tipping is not as widespread in France as it is seemingly everywhere in the US. And because of that, French people don't realize that when they travel abroad to the US, that they need to tip 20% regardless of how great the meal was, regardless of if it was a fancy meal or something more casual. And that's because they're not used to tipping at home. But in the US, it's expected. And if you're not going to leave a tip at a restaurant, that would be considered rude. But it happens all the time. I know servers here, maybe when they deal with French people, other Europeans, they can weigh in.
Yeah, I can't lie. I got my hair cut one time right before I started cutting my own joint. And I remember I told one of the friends about this, and she was like, you're supposed to tip 20%. What are you doing? I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm not rich. I'm not doing that. I don't have to tip her. She's cutting my hair, right? And I don't have to tip her. So the point is, like, it's not like a law where you gotta do that. It's just something of common decency. And if I tip you something like the change that is left over from, like, let's say you charge me 15 to cut my hair, I give you 20. Well, is that no, that's not 20%. But let's say I gave you $20 and I let you take the 5. Like, that's enough, dude. You know what I mean? So yeah, people tripping.
And on if that's been the case. In your experience as a
25%
server,
actually.
waitress, bartender, do French people tip you in the US? All right, number 5, the sound in conversation. Now, when you interact with the French, this is definitely a sound you're going to hear in regular conversation. I'll call it the sound. And it definitely caught me off guard the first couple of years I was in France. It's a conversational sound that's kind of used in the, there I go with in the way that is used in English. Like if you're talking to someone on the phone, you're in conversation, it affirms what's being said. You know, you say, and it lets the other person know that you're listening to what they're saying, you know, that you're still there, that you haven't hung up the phone. And just to describe this, I'm going to play an audio clip that I recorded with my French husband, Tom, just so you know what I'm talking about here before I continue. And yes, I've exaggerated the sound for emphasis, but listen.
Ouais, est-ce que tu as regardé le match hier? C'était super. Il y a eu plein de buts et puis maintenant ils vont être en finale, ça va être génial. J'espère que tu vas regarder avec moi parce que franchement c'était cool.
That's creepy. That's creepy. No, that's creepy. Don't do that shit. Don't do that shit. Dude, this is one French habit that I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't adopt to that one. No, dude. Okay, everybody who's not from France, be honest. What is that? Imagine you're talking to somebody, all you're hearing is like, what the hell? Bro, at least give me like 30 seconds, a minute. You know what I mean? Like, that is frequent.
Unlike the in English, the it always sounds like it's a bit of an interruption and rushed. And it always seems, for me at least, to come across abruptly. And maybe it's used more frequently than a would be every 10 or 20 seconds. And I found it so abrupt that I thought people were always rushing me to stop talking. And I'm like, they keep going, And I'm like, oh gosh, what am I doing wrong? You know, but I realized that that's not what they were doing. This is a normal French sound that lets you know the person you're talking to is actually listening. And it's a major communication difference.
I'm telling you, cultures is beautiful to learn because I would never imagine that people actually did that in their conversation. Hey, it's cool to the French. It's a little bit weird for me. Like I said, it's a little bit weird. A little bit, what are you doing, man? You know what I mean? But hey, I can't hate on it. You know what I mean? I can't hate on it. It's not offending me in any particular way. It's just a little bit, what? You know what I mean?
I have a blog post as well with audio with all these French sounds that I'll link below if you want to know more. They're cool. All right, number 6, a negative slant to speech. Now, if you speak French, you definitely know what I'm talking about here. Just to give you some examples, when you want to say something is pretty good, you'd say it's pas mal, which is literally not bad, which means you like it. So how's that cake taste over there that your mother took all day to make? Oh, pas mal. Is that guy good looking? What?
Yeah, that would not come across. I already get where she's going at. Like, saying not bad, it's like the most lowercase form of saying something is okay. So yeah, I get that.
Oh, he's pas moche, not ugly. And this stands in sharp contrast to what you'll hear in the US. I feel like Americans, maybe other English speakers, we like to say everything's amazing or great or the best ever. It has more of a positive slant, maybe over the top, depending on the person, but it leans in a more exuberant, positive direction than in France, hearing more of a glass half empty kind of thing. It's definitely a change. And you know, even if you didn't like the cake that your mom put a ton of effort into making, most Americans would probably default on the side of saying, oh, it's good or great or pretty good, you know, even if they didn't love it, because that's the polite thing to say. If you replied with a, not bad, that would definitely be considered a bit rude, I feel, in English, at least in American English, but not to the French. And a personal note, my in-laws always get a kick out of it and smile a bit when I tell them how great their food is, but I'm not lying. I've never said, oh, it's not bad. That's one French trait I have not picked up on. I keep saying things are great because they are. And here's another example of this negative slant. When the French mean maybe, you ask a question if they can help you with something. Instead of getting a maybe, you'll almost always get a no, a non, or ce n'est pas possible first before you have to kind of finesse your way into a yes. And this can be exhausting and come across as like overly negative, especially when you're dealing with the bureaucracy, customer service, really anything. You ask for what you think is something simple, and then you're told no, only to ask 4 more times in 4 different ways, and then you kind of work your way to a yes. And I feel like it can seem like a waste of time, a waste of effort if you're not used to it, just to be told, no, ce n'est pas possible, when it would have just been easier to say yes from the start. It's almost like a little game you have to get used to, but that's just how it's done. All right, number 7, not picking up after your dog.
Oh, yeah, this one got me mad one time in Finland, bro, because I was riding my bicycle and I rode over some, you know, dog stuff, and I got mad, bro, because I had to be washing my bike, you know, and it's not like I have anywhere to actually wash it properly because this is freaking Finland. I don't have like a outside backyard with a pipe outside. I had to be using, you know, like a little pipe that they have here in the community. I had to be using it, and it doesn't have much pressure to it. I was so mad because I was like, bro, you can't do that. But then I realized, like, people really don't be picking up after their dogs actually in Finland. Like, some people might do it, but I've seen so many dog, you know what, in places, right? And I'm like, dang, people really don't be picking up, so I gotta watch out. But you know, you chill because you understand that, hey, this is their country, this is how they do it here. I can't stress over that. I just gotta adopt to it and, you know, make my life a little bit better. And now I start watching out for them.
Let me preface this by saying the French love their pets just like Americans. Vet care is fantastic here, and plenty of French people pick up their dog's poop. They do, okay? Let me say that right out of the gate.
Appreciate.
They even sell waste bags in France. Right. A lot of parks have the dispensers that give them out for free. Overall, in the time I've lived in France, it's a little over a decade now, streets and parks, they've definitely gotten a lot cleaner over the years. There is progress being made on that front, and that is most certainly a good thing. But, and yes, there's a but. The French stereotype of there being a lot of dog poop all over the sidewalks, it does come from somewhere. It's not just something someone made up. There's still loads of French people who never pick up after their dogs, especially if the dog does his or her business in the grass, you know, not in direct, you know, in a direct walking path on the sidewalk. And every time I go out in my neighborhood to walk, I will absolutely see, even on a 10-minute walk, that there is poop that has not been picked up. And yeah, of course, there are some Americans that are just as careless. But it seems like if you don't pick up your poop,
people get mad.
Your dog's poop, rather, in the U.S., people will shame you. The default thing is to pick it up.
Exactly.
And I haven't really seen that in France, people being shamed by other French people. And, you know, to Americans, it's super rude to leave your dog's poop on the sidewalk or the grass, you know, waiting to be stepped in. Yuck. All right, and now for some very important context. You know, I try to keep my intro short here, but there are some things I want to cover. So first, as I always say, cultural habits and the ways other countries do things, they're not inherently good or bad or right and wrong. The French aren't always right, Americans aren't always wrong, vice versa. No, and I just want to say that this video and the reverse one I did of the American things the French find rude, it's not meant to put anyone on the defensive or to shame any culture. We'll find rude people all over the world. It is certainly not nationality specific. I also think it's important to point out that no one tries to be rude. No one goes out of their way to say, I'm going to be a rude a-hole today, you know? But of course, we can all have bad days. And even more importantly, French people doing the things I just talked about, they're not deliberate efforts to be disrespectful or offend Americans when they're in the U.S. They're acting appropriately in their culture, in France, but cultural norms don't always translate. And if we don't know, we don't know. And look, when we travel, we can act however we want. You do you. But I think it's important to be aware of how our own cultural norms from our home country.
That is so right. That is so right. What she's saying right there is so true. It's very personal. I'm not going to leave that in the video because it's going to be just so extended and long. But it's something that you guys definitely should watch. So if you've not seen the original video, please do click the link in the description and go watch that about, you know, about 2 minutes, 50 seconds worth of, you know, wise words coming from we in France, right? So go check it out because what she's saying is very true. Cultural differences doesn't mean it's a defensive, you know, time where people get defensive and you're like, this is how it's supposed to be done, that's how it's supposed to be done. No, that's your culture, that's my culture, this is how we do it here, this is how we do here. That would make me a little bit that would make you a little bit you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, we're humans and we have things differently and we do things differently, we see things differently. We just have to try to understand each other, you know what I mean? So this was a wonderful video from We in France. So shout out to her. Link will be in the description for the original video. Please go check it out. She's saying something very important right here at the end of this video. And yeah, go check it out. I'm out of here, guys. Peace.